The Senzo Meyiwa case, in which 5 men are on trial for allegedly killing the star goalkeeper, will resume today at the High Court in Pretoria. The first witness, Seargeant Thabo Mosia, will continue being cross-examined by counsel for the fifth accused, Advocate Zandile Mshololo. Mosia is a forensic police officer who processed the murder scene, and he will answer more questions on the contradictions between his statement and the late Ndlovu statement in the second docket. For more on this, let's cross to our SABC News reporter Chriselda Lewis. Chriselda, a very good morning to you. Are we likely to see Advocate Mshololo wrap up her cross-examination of Mosia today?
Well, that certainly seems likely, Naledi. You see, Advocate Zandile Mshololo has already arrived here at court, and I do understand that she is likely to wrap up her cross-examination of the state's first witness, forensic detective Thabo Mosia, in about an hour after we start. Of course, court starts at 10 o'clock. The understanding is that perhaps in about an hour or shortly more than an hour, she will have wrapped up that cross-examination. Indeed, is expected to continue facing tough questions once that cross-examination resumes here in the High Court this morning. And indeed, the contradictions are expected as well to be touched on again. Yesterday, we saw several of those being brought up by Advocate Zandile Mshololo in stark contrast to what Thabo Mosia had previously told this court. He had indicated that Brigadier Ndlovu had never given him an address to the crime scene, and that is why he had started at the hospital where it's believed Senzo Meyiwa was declared dead. But in a statement that was deposed by Ndlovu, that statement indicates that he had given Mosia an address, and basically one of the other issues that also came up is that you would recall that Mosia had also indicated previously, or told this court, that at some point even he had handed over the scene to Brigadier Ndlovu, and he painted a picture of working side by side with Ndlovu at the crime scene. But nowhere in the statement that was deposed by Ndlovu does he indicate that he assisted Thabo Mosia anywhere. And also he was questioned about the fact that the crime scene report also did not have the signature of Brigadier Ndlovu to corroborate basically what he was saying, because a lot of the testimony that Mosia had given inside this court, he painted a picture, even including the fact that he said that Ndlovu had showed him where to take photographs and some of the exhibits, but nowhere in the statement certainly does Ndlovu indicate that he assisted Mosia. In fact, he says he did not do so because he was not in charge of the crime scene.
And if we look at what we're expecting to see today, are we likely to see a second witness finally take the stand?
That is very likely here this morning or into this afternoon, Naledi. We don't know who that second witness is at this particular point, but there is a clear indication at this point that once Advocate Zandile Mshololo does conclude a cross-examination of Thabo Mosia, that a second witness will be called.
Yeah, well, this is what we're seeing, though, is that the trial is officially underway once again. But I want to go back to the reason why we saw some of the delays that we really did see. The issue of that second docket really addressed yesterday. Will we take us a few steps back on how the court really wrapped up that issue?
Well, that's right. You must recall, Naledi, there also been the issue of the application that was brought for a special entry by Advocate Zandile Mshololo. You would recall that she has contended that the state had failed to hand over crucial documentation, including docket 375, or revealing the contents of that docket. They did not give it to her or to the defense before this trial had started. She had contended in her argument when she brought that application that her client would have pleaded differently had they had been in possession of that docket 375. She went further to say, you know, that docket is quite crucial in the sense that it does contain some of the photos of the album that were taken at the crime scene, And she would, of course, have wanted to have prior knowledge of that. You would know, of course, that it would be the onus of the state to provide all the necessary documentation, including that docket 375, which has been a bone of contention in this matter, should have been provided to Advocate Zandile Mshololo way before this trial had started, but she had said she had received it when the trial had started, after her client had pleaded, and this was also during the cross-examination of the current witness that is on the stand, Thabo Mosia. But after some time, what we saw yesterday was Judge Chifuwa Maumela a bit concerned about the fact that we were not getting to the actual trial itself, getting to understand exactly what happened on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was killed. He raised that issue, then called the legal representatives to his office, and they basically all agreed that Advocate Zandile Mshololo would not pursue that application any further. But the issue of docket 375 is something that is expected to continue to take center stage here, because you must know that the defense has contended that the men who are sitting in this dock are not those who should be answering to the murder of Senzo Meyiwa. In fact, it's those that were inside the house on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was killed, they believe should be inside the dock.
Yeah. And Chriselda, the public interest in this trial really is quite massive. How do you describe the atmosphere within the courtroom, particularly yesterday? I mean, you can talk to me perhaps about the demeanor of the witness on the stand, Seargeant Mosia, who we know was ailing, how this trial itself was taking a toll on him. But I'm also particularly interested in the demeanor of the 5 accused that are on the stand today.
Well, I can certainly tell you that as soon as cross-examination had resumed yesterday, there was really quite a sigh of relief that we're actually getting to the actual trial itself. After, of course, Judge Maumela had expressed some concern, and you would recall that before this trial had resumed on Monday, that Thabo Mosia was not feeling well. At some point, much prior, we had to adjourn because he was not feeling okay, but we did manage to have a conversation with him. He said he was doing fine, but quite under pressure, if I could paint that kind of picture yesterday, because when he was asked by Advocate Zandile Mshololo, if he knew about this statement that was deposed by Brigadier Ndlovu before he had taken the stand, he basically said he did not know about it. And where a number of these contradictions had been raised versus what he told this court, and the statement that Brigadier Ndlovu had deposed, you could really see him buckling under pressure. And we're expecting more of that this morning, as Advocate Zandile Mshololo is expected to continue focusing on what he said in this court versus what that statement by Brigadier Ndlovu states. So I think also a bit of a sigh of relief on the part of the family of Senzo Meyiwa, in the sense that the trial itself now officially seen to have been kick-started once again. But when it comes to the demeanor of the accused, very difficult, to say. But they've remained in the dock, and I think at this particular point, if one could say perhaps slight relief, as Advocate Zandile Mshololo continues to poke holes in the testimony of Thabo Mosia, in that the comparisons or the contradictions that she has pointed out versus what Brigadier Ndlovu had said in his statement would certainly paint a picture in this instance, in that Advocate Mshololo is challenging the credibility of what Mosia had basically told this court.
Yeah, I mean, it is a complex issue because there are so many fringe matters on the outside of the courtroom as well. I mean, at the beginning of this week, we had that fire outside the courtroom. Any updates on that? And then last week, us hearing that Advocate Malesela Defo filing charges of defamation and criminal injuria against Magdalene Munsami, as well as EFF leader Julius Malema. Any update on that issue?
Well, the last that we heard, Naledi, from police is that 2 people had been arrested for suspected arson at the Legal Practice Council building, which is just next door the court. I think on the day that the fire had broken out, there had been concerns that the court might be affected perhaps because of the smoke, and that the matter itself would not be heard. But fortunately, that did not happen, and the matter was able to proceed. But I must say a sigh of relief in that the matter itself, the actual trial itself, is officially now underway, and we're expecting, of course, that cross-examination to continue this morning. And indeed, yes, Advocate Malisela Tifo is no longer part of this particular case. Also, I know in the run-up to Monday, when the trial resumed, I understand that there had been some consultations that he had with some of the families of the suspects, which are currently in the dock, about perhaps getting back onto this case, but that was subsequently denied. That is our understanding. And then we also heard police confirming that he had opened a case against EFF leader Julius Malema, as well as Magdalene Munsami, who is the lawyer of Meyiwa's then girlfriend Kelly Kumalo. But we saw both of them respond to that, rubbishing the claims that Tifo was essentially making, and the accusations that they had defamed him at some point in statements that they had made in the media, in this instance Magdalene Munsami, and during a press conference where EFF leader Julius Malema had touched on this matter and the conduct or decorum of Advocate Tifo inside this court. But I think a sigh of relief now that this matter has finally gotten underway, and a possibility that a second witness might be called in this matter today.